I found out that if you want to draw close to God, you need to buy a motorcycle. And you need to drive it to work and leave the house a little bit late so that you're stuck in the, oh my gosh, I'm late for work crowd. Because I'm telling you what, on the way to work, I've seen so many miracles, signs and wonders you would not believe. I think it's because I play a trumpet, but the horn on my motorcycle is anointed. Somebody won't see me, and I can hit that horn. Blinded eyes are open immediately. It is amazing. And then they hang out, and I think they're shouting. And no, they're giving me a sign. And I don't have to wonder what they're saying either. I had to call Pastor the other day and say, Pastor, I'm not going to make it to church this weekend. He said, why? I said, I just closed a 3-week revival on the way to work, and I'm exhausted. So if you want to draw close to the Lord, that's what you need to do. But you'll be pleased tonight to know that, last time I talked, I said, I've really gotten in depth, and I went to Genesis 1:1. Well, I've gotten further this time. I've gotten to Genesis 1:3. So I've been studying a lot. But what got me on this scripture, I don't know what you want. I'm not OCD, but I like to dig in the weeds and look at the details of some things. So in Genesis 1:3, it said, and you all can quote it, God said, let there be light. Now, who else thinks, I used to just assume and take it for granted when he said, let there be light. The sun. I mean, what other source of light is there? Anybody else think that, or did you think deeper? I mean, when somebody said, let there be light. Come on, I can't be. Well, I got to thinking, he said, let there be light, because he probably couldn't say, let there be electromagnetic radiation. Because the scholars probably didn't know how to spell that. But what I want to dig into, I'm going to set you up. So bear with me. I'm going to feed you some information, some data, and then I'm going to tie it all together. Because I'm still stuck on the two parallel lives, a spiritual life and a physical life, and tying those two together. And so I want to make a correlation here. When he said light, to me, you may not agree, but I started thinking, that's not the sun, because on in the verses, he says later on, then he said, let there be the sun and the stars and the moon. So I'm like, what was light about? What was that? So I started thinking about light. Well, you and I think about light, or most people think about light, they see what you see here. This is light. Light can have many forms in the physical. In the physical, it can. The thing in the verse that got me further after that was, he said, God then separated light from darkness. How can you separate light from darkness? I've never seen it mixed. So at some point, God, however he did it, took his hand, and light will always be here, dark was over here, and they can't meet. And if you go through the scriptures, you'll see that everywhere. Anywhere there's Jesus, you won't be in the darkness. If you walk in his path, you won't walk in darkness. It's a lamp unto my feet. It's a light. I said, well, that's really interesting. So I started thinking about what the characteristics of light are. And like I said, there's many, many forms of light. It's called an electromagnetic radiation spectrum. And if this spectrum was as wide as the church, the part that you and I can see is about that big, because there's a radio wavelengths, microwaves, and they're measured in meters. Then you get to the more powerful light waves, like gamma rays, X-rays, and they're measured in billions of meters. We can see between 400 billionths and 700 billionths. So our part is very narrow, what we can visually see. Now think about this a minute. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Okay, I can get with that. But what all can light do? Light can communicate. All right? Light is necessary to sustain life, plant life. Light drives our weather patterns. It heats the earth up. It is the source of communication. We can study the space from reading light waves sent back and forth into space. So there's a lot of things that light can do versus just illuminate. So we have the radio microwaves, we have infrareds, we have visible light. That's what we focus on a lot. Ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma. Now think about this. Microwaves, radio waves, communication. I am the light of the world. So he's communicated his word. I can heal. Gamma radiation. They use that for cancer treatment. Kill cancer cells. He sees our heart. He can see through things. God can. Are you seeing the correlation between God and light? Why I'm fascinated with that, how to tie those in, because is he a light? Yes. And he even acts like a light. He has the power of a light. You can actually communicate through solid objects with light, microwaves, and so forth. God can do that. He can pass through solid. I was just fascinated how the characteristics of light match characteristics of Jesus. Now, the other part I'm thinking about here is, he separated light from darkness. What is darkness? Want to take a shot? Pardon? Close. It's the absence of visible light. There's a difference. Even in darkness, you can have these other lights, other forms of light that exist. Well, we focus on darkness. We weren't made to function in complete darkness. We can function in limited light because our eyes, our retinas, they'll open up, they'll soak in as much light as possible, so we can operate in the darkness. But in total darkness, we can't. I remember one time we went on in a cave and going down through the cave, and they tell everybody, okay, stop, grab hold of the handrails, nobody move. Okay, we're getting held up or what? We got to get a bigger one of these things. What we're going to do, we're going to turn the lights off. And so they turn the lights off, and it is complete darkness. There is no light. And after a few minutes, I got this eerie feeling because I start to lose my sensation. I can't see how far my hand is away from my face. I can't tell how close the person become disoriented. And they've done studies on this, that the brain, when it's not receiving input through the eyes, will begin to associate images with other sensations you might feel. Taste, touch, sound. That if it goes long enough without an input, you'll begin to hallucinate. I thought that was interesting about darkness. The other thing about darkness is you can't buy it. You can't create darkness. It's just not there. And I'm equating that with God, with Satan. Darkness. And darkness is measured by the amount of light it reflects. Black doesn't reflect much. That's the reason it's dark. Other colors reflect. In fact, your color white is every color except white. Blue is every color except blue. Those are just the photons in light that get reflected off. Keep all this in mind. I know this is getting dry, but I'm going to bring it all in here in a minute. I'm going to bring it all in here. Now, I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm not macho. I'm just not afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of what's in the dark that I can't see. That's what scares me. So we don't function that way very well. We can't function in the dark because we have to have all our senses to be able to function. So what brought all this on was, I don't know, if you remember a few months ago, we had an eclipse. And Missy and Frank, can you help me a minute here? Yeah. I was going to pick your mother for this because she's hot, but she wasn't here. So I want you to come up here and stand right here. You get down there and stand, okay? She's going to be the sun, all right? It was your mother because she's hot, but anyway. All right, you're going to be the earth. Now we had an eclipse, that blocked the sun for a while. And what happened when you blocked the sun? Got colder, got darker, and so forth. So you're going to be the moon, all right? Yeah, that's good. Now, I'm making an illustration here. We got the sun back there. We got the earth here. And the moon is now in between us. All of a sudden it got dark. It got cold. People were fascinated by it. And I was too to some extent, but I got to thinking, what changed? The sun is still burning at 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The earth is still spinning, I think it's 1,000 miles an hour, and it's still tilted at 25 degrees, 25.8 degrees, something like that. It's still orbiting at 2,800 miles an hour. The sun is still 93 million miles away. The moon is, I forget what it was, 260,000 miles away. Nothing changed, really. In the relationship, the sun's still the center of the universe. The moon's still orbiting the earth. Earth and moon are orbiting the sun. So from Earth's perspective, the only thing that really changed is our perspective. Now think about that. Yeah, there was a change. I felt a change, but it was my perspective that changed. I can no longer see the sun. Come over to the spiritual side a minute. Whatever happens in your life when you feel out of sorts, you don't feel right, something's out of kilter. The sun is still there. God is still there. I'm still here. His relationship, her relationship to Freddie ain't changing. It's Freddie, right? Okay. She still loves him. She still's reaching for him. Same way in the spiritual. God's relationship with us hasn't changed. I still want you. I love you. I want you to come to me. I want to help you. I want to bless you. I want to lead you. That relationship's still there. But from our perspective, again, it's changed. Something is different. Now, we can either wait on that, as in with the sun and the moon. I mean, eventually it's going to pass through. Okay? But we know God's still there. All we have to do is have the faith to know whatever I'm going through right now is going to pass. Everything is still working as it should. Thank you. I appreciate that. The other part about light is we don't always see what light's doing. How many has ever seen a microwave work? You've seen a microwave oven and you've seen it work, but have you seen what a microwave can do? Have you ever seen the microwave? No. Now, I've seen what it can do. I've seen it melt my wife's Tupperware bowls when I leave it in there too long. So I've seen the effects of what light can do. I've seen the effects of what an X-ray can do. I'm looking at the bones in the body. I've seen the effects of what gamma radiation, it treating cancer. God is always working, even though we can't see it. Again, if you're using that spectrum, we can only see that much of light. And again, thought, man, it's really fascinating because that's what God does. Just because I don't see him working doesn't mean he's not. Right. But he's always doing something. He's always working on my behalf. So I thought that was another neat characteristic of light and how it works. But we can even go further. So light has many properties, one of which is reflection and refraction. Catch this one for a minute. Light always travels in a straight line. So if you stand in front of the mirror, I can see my reflection. If I'm standing off to the side, I can see another reflection because it bounces off the same way. It's a reflection. So with light then, what are we reflecting? What are we reflecting? If we reflect the light, Jesus Christ, then others can see that. What are we reflecting? I don't know. Another part of light and some of its characteristics is I don't know, have you ever seen a dull paint job? Ladies, I don't have good analogies for women, I'm sorry. They call it orange peel. The car's dull, doesn't have much of a shine, and usually that's because the surface is rough. Because when light hits it, it goes all different directions. But you take a car that's been buffed and shined and waxed and polished and clear coat, and it looks like it's 3 inches deep. You shine a light on that, it just ricochets off. It puts a glare out there. You can tell the difference when it's dispersed versus when it's reflected. Light will also bend, even though it travels in a straight line. It's a wave. So you can shine a light through a door and it doesn't keep going straight. It keeps expanding. It keeps covering. But what you can't find is a dark spot when the light's on. You ever think about that? You can't. I can give you a box and tell you I bought you a box of dark. As soon as you open it, it's gone. It's gone. Because, as you said, darkness is the absence of visible light. Go over to the spiritual side. Darkness is the absence of a light. A light. Now you may be thinking, well, hey, I'm new in church. I'm not that bright of a light, or I don't have a lot of knowledge. Well, I don't either, but I'm up here, so what? But here's the deal with that. When my wife and I, we went, I think it was not Coonskins, it was the big state park. No, Pipestem. And they had this activity, I think it was like 11 o'clock at night, to go on a nature walk at midnight. Cool, sounds neat. So as we're walking down through the woods, we pass this cabin, and the guy says, I want you to pay attention to that cabin. Everybody looked, it had like a 25-watt light bulb or one of those bug lights out front. You can barely see. He said, when you come out of the woods, if you get separated, head to the right. And that's what I thought he was really saying. Wasn't. So we go through the woods, and again, in darkness, you can't smell as good. You can't taste as good because all your other senses are depending upon what you see. For instance, you could bake a cake and put salt instead of sugar. It looks good. It might smell good. And your brain is saying, hey, that's a nice piece of cake. That looks good. But as soon as you taste it, it's not going to be good. But your brain has already set your body up for something good. I'm playing games, and just bear with me here. So anyway, we're doing all this in the woods, and you're learning how you depend on sight and for other senses, and we start walking out. And we're beginning to crest the hill. He said, now be careful. That cabin's up there on the left. Everybody's okay, all right. As soon as we crest that hill, you thought you were staring into a freight train. I mean, that light was so bright. I mean, everybody just held their eyes up. Well, Brad, what do you mean? What's the big deal about that? The big deal is, when I went down, you could stare right at it. You could barely see it. But coming back, it blinded me. No matter where you are in your walk with God, you've got a light because he lives within you. You may not be the brightest light, but in darkness, it can be the brightest light. It can be the brightest light. You can be that light for somebody in the darkness. So never, ever doubt your abilities when it comes to serving God because I'm not this or that. You know, sometimes it doesn't take the expert. Sometimes it takes the one that's lived the life to reach somebody. Someone, it just has, that light reaches this person. I've always heard this, and I've repeated it all the time, is that the anointing oil, you can't get it unless you crush the olive. Now think about that. That oil's in that olive, but it does no good until that olive's crushed. And then it produces an oil that can be used for anointing. And it's the same way with our lives. You may be crushed different than me or you or however, whatever life did to you and crushed you, there's an anointing there, an oil that will reach somebody that went through a similar experience. Again, not a big deal, but it's the light. It's the light that we shine forth. So this is the point I really want to make through all of this. Talked about light, talked about darkness. And I really think when God said, let there be light, I think that's when, correct me if I'm wrong, don't throw me out of church, that's when the Spirit of Jesus was born. I think that's when God created his Son that he later gave, is when he said, let there be light. Junior, come on, help me. I mean, I'm not being sacrilegious. He was just, the Spirit of God was just roaming the earth, skimming the surface, and this isn't going to work. I need to bring something here to illuminate, to teach, so that they can gain knowledge. Usher in the Spirit of Jesus. I am the light. Correct me if I'm wrong, but to me it fits. It works. So we get there. So Satan's best move, I say this in respects. I know we give Satan too much power, but I know he's powerful. I mean, he can walk into the throne room of God. Just what I did to Job. He went in. God said, what are you doing here? He said, I want to talk to you about Job. Okay? But his best move in our lives is to block the light, just like an eclipse. Now think about that. If he blocks the light, we can't see our source of life. We begin to doubt ourselves, begin to doubt him. Even though the relationship hasn't changed, that's his best move, is to block. Now think about this again. So if I'm blocking, most sports, competitive sports, you have to block. And I'm not talking about offense blocking. Defense is trying to block the offense from reaching the goal. Can't score a basket. You can't do a touchdown. You can't get a home run. You can't cross home base. They're trying to block you the whole time. Now, the other side of that is if I'm blocking you, I can't score. I can't score if all I do is block. I can't score unless you drop the ball. Unless you drop the ball, he can't defeat you. Because the ball is our game plan. The ball is our Bible. Think about it. Just think about that. All he can do is block you. Now, there's some tense times when he's blocking you. I'm not downplaying that. But that's what he did with Job. He was blocking the light pretty harshly. By the way, do you ever think he did everything, he took everything in Job except his wife? What's that tell you about his wife? I mean, that was part of the punishment? Or, I mean, I got to thinking about that. Like, man, that's pretty rough. I'll take everything, but, leave his wife. That'll help me. I can leave with that. Just a thought. Sorry, jumped off there. But again, blocking. That's all Satan can do is block the light. Block the light. One more thing here. Would you put one of those pictures up? Obviously, this is the moon. That's the earth, space. I don't know what ship that is. It looks like some type of satellite orbiting. Okay, show me the other one. What's the difference? I can't hear you. Come on. What? I can't hear. I'm deaf, okay? The moon is not in the light. I'm going to politely correct you. The moon is in the light.
It's in the light.
Not in the way. It's in the light. Okay? Go back again. You need to turn your microwaves up so I can hear you, okay? All right. Now go back to the other one. What's the difference? Pardon? It's brighter. That's good. That's good. Go back to the moon again. That moon is sitting in the same universe that the earth is. Has the same sun in the middle of it. How come the sky is black? Perspective. He's paying attention. I'm going to take you out milkshake after church. Perspective, but there's another reason. Say it again. There's nothing to reflect the light. Light is still there. Light travels in a straight beam until it illuminates something. Something has to disperse the light. Richard, come here a minute. I'm picking on Richard tonight. You all can see Richard just fine, right?
Yes.
I dispersed the light. You can't see Richard anymore because light isn't hitting him. Light is now hitting him. What's so big about that, Brad? Well, I'll tell you what's so big about that. God can be everywhere. And he is everywhere. But the world can't see him unless we disperse the light. Unless we get in front of that light and reflect him. Unless we disperse that light, they'll never, ever see him. That's the characteristics of light. Light is up. Hey, where'd my picture go? I bet you're a school teacher. You could take a flashlight on the moon and shine it out. And you can even, if it's a clear night, you can do it at your house. Take a flashlight out at night, shine it. If there's no dust in the air, if everything's calm, you won't see that beam of light. You'll see what it's lighting up. You'll see what it illuminated, but you can't see the light. And that's what in space, there's no atmosphere in space. There are no particles floating around. Think of it, there's billions and trillions of stars up there. And the same sun that lights us up, that's what you see. You can see the moon because the moon is reflecting the light. But there's nothing in the atmosphere to disperse the light. That's where we come in at work. And I kind of talked about it in the previous talk of creating an atmosphere. That's what we do. We create the atmosphere to disperse the light so others can see Christ in us. And that's really the point I'm trying to bring out through all of this, is to correlate how the physical light is really a physical representation of Jesus Christ. It has the same characteristics. But what really caught my attention is that the visible light, he's always working behind the scenes. We can't see it, except that small sliver. But he's always working. But when we step in that small sliver, we could see for miles. Go back to the blue sky. You can see our atmosphere because basically it's nitrogen and what's the other one? Oxygen in it. And when that light hits those molecules, it disperses the light. And the color of those light is blue, purple, whatever's out there. In fact, that's how a rainbow works. Everybody knows a rainbow is a reflection. But when I started digging into it, it's really cool because billions of water droplets up there. Each one of them is a prism. Each one of them is a prism. And when that light hits that prism, it breaks that light and disperses it into its colors. That's the reason you never have distinct lines in a rainbow, because there's billions of droplets. So that the cutoff isn't the same for everybody because it's all different angles, but it's always the same color. It's that light. It's what's in the atmosphere that disperses the light, that allows us to see and to operate. Are you catching my drift? Are you catching my drift? Just because Jesus is there, we have to disperse the light. We have to reflect him. Or nobody's ever going to see him. And we can't operate in the dark. The only times I want to operate in the dark is when I'm doing something I don't want anybody to know about. Okay? You know, you folks that were in the military, what's the best time to attack the enemy? Usually at night. Now to me, I'm thinking, if I'm the enemy, hey, it's nighttime, guess who's coming? You know, you prepare for it. But you can't see the enemy coming in the dark. That's the goal, is you can't see the enemy coming in the dark. But when you spread light on it, you can see for miles. You can see what's coming. I'm not afraid in the night because I can see what's in the light. And I know hey, stay away from there. Go over here. This is danger. This is good. That's bad. Yes. Night, I don't know that in the dark because I can't see. There's nothing to disperse the light. Same thing in the spiritual walk. And if we're not there reflecting him, dispersing that light, causing an illumination, we'll bear to see. So, Rob, if you'd come up, and I might be a little short tonight, I don't know, but I just wanted to make the point of how light operates and how Jesus reflects, he reflects that property in a spiritual sense that we can live by. So I'm just going to ask, and if we could all just, I'm old-fashioned, if we could all just come up front together and maybe sing a song and just disperse the light together to see how bright a light we can make and just worship God for a few minutes together. Would that be all right? Nobody has to, we're not trying to get anybody up here against your will. I'm just as a group. Because the more we have, the greater light there is to reflect.